Well, hello there, neighbor. I'm Julie Bennett, and welcome to Renovator's Toolkit. I'm so glad that you're joining me here live. This is my first ever Facebook Live. I did this on Instagram a little bit earlier, so going all in today on the lives. I'm here today to share with you my renovation regrets. I have 5 examples from my own renovation when I rebuilt my Seattle home, and I have ideas and recommendations, lessons learned for what you can do instead, so you don't have to repeat the same mistakes that I made. Some renovation mistakes are avoidable. Now, there will be little surprises along the way as you navigate existing conditions and challenges that might emerge from materials you've selected or the who you're working with. But there are some things that are avoidable up front. It's really frustrating to get to the end of the project and realize, gosh, it didn't have to be that way. It didn't have to be that hard, and things could happen different. So let's dive in. I'm so excited to share with you my renovation regrets and what you can do to avoid them in the future. The first one to share with you is that I failed to think enough about my future needs and our family lifestyle when designing some of the spaces in our house. Now, here's a little bit more specific example. When when we were planning our renovation, our children were really small. Like, I think we hadn't yet had our 3rd child, and we had, I think a 3 and a 1-year-old. So really, really little kids. Now, it sounds really silly, but at the time, they just weren't really tracking in a whole lot of mud. We'd go to and from daycare, and we'd go to and from the park, but it wasn't something where they were running in and out of the house all the time and tracking in all this dirt. So my renovation regret is I didn't think about, like how much they would grow and how that might change. And as a result, I didn't really plan much of a mud room. So every day I walk in, our kids throw their jackets on the couch, and we have this pile of shoes by the door that never seem to make it to the coat closet. And it would have been really great to have a proper mud room. And I remember having this conversation with our designer, and she asked, do you want a mud room? And thinking, oh no, we don't really need that. We lived in homes where you just walked right into the space, and there wasn't really a place to drop all those things. But now with 3 school-age children, gosh, I wish we had a place where all of those things could go. So what you can do instead, really think about your lifestyle in 5 or 10 years. What is going to change? How will it evolve? Are you going to have your family grow? In our case, of course, as soon as we knocked down our house, I found out that I was pregnant with our 3rd child. And, we had 3 bedrooms upstairs, and the boys share a room, and that is great. But, at the time, we probably could have updated our plans, or we could have created plans that had room for that growth. We could have 4 bedrooms upstairs instead of 3, with just a little bit of changes at the beginning when we were still in that drawing process. But once we actually had the house built and framed, then that whole change thing became so much more complicated. So if we had thought a little bit more through those things, maybe we would have a little bit different design. Another example that I've seen from home buyers, as I'm a real estate agent here in Seattle, is that your future needs. A lot of home buyers are out there looking for a place where they can have their parents live with them. So if you're thinking about your future needs, if you have potentially aging parents or somebody that might be living with you, or you want to make room for an au pair, or you want rental income from a roommate, leave options open. Think deliberately through how you might like to live or what that might look like, so you can plan that into your renovation while it's in the planning phase, before you've moved walls and knocked things down and spent all the money. So I think those, how my life has changed is a little different than how your life has changed or will change in the future, but those are some examples that you can think through. All right, on to lesson learned, and avoidable regret number 2 is that my laundry room is too small. And this is something that I've talked a little bit about. It's really kind of a silly one, but spaces like laundry rooms or mud rooms, or your kitchen, that little triangle, the sink, refrigerator, and the stove trifecta, those things, those spaces where you live your life, where you do your chores, they make your home livable. And so having a laundry room that feels a little small, when we were drawing the lines, it was a clean sheet, it could have been anything. And I just realized now that I didn't want to use up the space for these other living spaces in the laundry room, and now I realize that it was actually a lot more important than I realized. So think through those things in advance. Washing machines, they take up a lot of space. They are deeper, quite a bit, 6-8 inches deeper than counter depth. So give yourself some extra room in the laundry room so it feels spacious. So maybe you want room for a sink and counter space for folding or places to hang things. We have mountains, absolutely mountains of laundry because I have 3 little kids, like they're 3, 5, and 7, and the laundry just is like nonstop. So, we spend a lot of time sometimes folding the laundry on the couch. It's like, well, we had a room we built for this, right? It's on the 2nd floor, which I love. Highly recommend having your laundry room on the same floor as your bedrooms, if at all possible. And a lot in Seattle, a lot of the laundry rooms are naturally in the basement. So you just like trudge all the way down the stairs and it's this big deal. But yeah, think through those spaces. So whether for you, Tara, whether for you it is the laundry room, or maybe it's the kitchen, or the dining room, or maybe it's your home office. You didn't plan to have a home office, and suddenly, man, here we are. We're living in the home office land, and I have a hide a bed behind me, and it's also our guest room going all in as one. Those are the things you can think through. Okay, so another lesson learned, this was a hard one. This isn't one that would have been difficult to avoid. So mid-project, our kitchen contractor, we were about to sign, and write a big check to have our kitchen cabinets made. The cabinet manufacturer folded, like in the middle of our project. I had been with them on a Thursday, and we went to send the check on a Tuesday, and they were gone. Like they were locked up, the doors were closed, and they didn't exist anymore. This was in the middle of our project where everything was sequential. So things have to be ordered in advance. So while it's really hard to avoid something like somebody going out of business, there are a lot of things, and the lesson to be learned from this is that there's things that are sequential in your build, and there are long lead times, especially now kind of post-COVID, and this as the supply chain realigns itself, things are taking a lot longer than usual. So when we had that happen, it was this huge scramble, and then we had long lead times, right? So to get the cabinets we wanted, it could be like we needed them in like 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And a lot of the cabinet makers that we liked were 12, 14, 16 weeks out. So when you think through things like your cabinetry, your home furnishings, faucets, sinks, light fixtures, the other little details that tie your whole house together, plan those in advance. Appliances, another item that's been really highly impacted by supply chain constraints that have emerged as a result of the pandemic. So, plan those things in advance, because as you progress to, put your kitchen back together, or, renovate your bathroom, you'll need those items in a specific order to be on site. And if your cabinets aren't there, they might have somebody coming to do the plumbing, right, on the cabinets in your bathroom, scheduled the week after the cabinets are supposed to be installed. But if they're delayed, everything moves to the right. And don't assume that the person that was supposed to come do the electrical a week after your cabinets are installed is going to be available, so quickly after that. There's many examples of how that could happen, but just make sure that you give yourself plenty of buffer and that you don't have those things coming just in time. The other piece of this that is important is not to change your mind. Okay, I'm gonna say that one more time. Don't change your mind. So as you're going through your renovation process, you don't want to wing it. You need to have a plan and stick to the plan. That way you can have transparency and certainty about what you're going to get out of your renovation. But if you're going through and you're changing your mind about the tile you want, or you realize that something doesn't work, you're going to create opportunity for things to continue to slide. It'll be really frustrating because things will take longer than you expect. They might be out of stock, or you'll delay everything that is supposed to follow after that one item is supposed to get installed. Okay, number 3. So we upgraded to a metal roof, but really initially in our plans we had planned for composite. So we ended up having the roof is one of the first things that goes on your house, right? So they frame it, and then you got to get it dried in before the rain starts in Seattle. You got to dry it in. Same probably importance whether or not you get that much rain. Oh, here comes my kiddos. Isn't whether you get as much rain, is to make sure that you get that roof on. So we ended up having to upgrade to a metal roof because of the way that we designed the roofing. So we had some low slopes on our roof, and as a result, it required a much slicker surface. So, oh, there she is. Hello. I'll talk to you in a minute. Anyway, so because we needed a much slicker surface, we needed to upgrade to a metal roof, which was much more expensive than the composite that we had planned for. Now, going back, I could have just, I didn't really need a metal roof. It wasn't a high priority item. It was nice to have, and it will, now that it's on, it's 50 years, so we're good. As long as I live in this house, like, we're good to go on the roof. However, I wish I had like that, 15, 20, 30K, whatever the difference was, to put somewhere else in the house. If I could, at the beginning of the project, we said, hey, would you like a metal roof, or would you like to, have something else in the house? Or would you like to, finish your staircase the way you want to, whatever it might be for you. Then, sorry about that, I turned all these notifications off, but it's all right. We have a few surprises along the way, but we'll just roll with it. This is the first one. Anyway, so with the metal roof, it's an example of, you need to get very deliberate and thoughtful about the things that are most important to you from the beginning, so you can prioritize them early from the get-go. So I would have said, hey, like, simplify the roof or change the slope, and the time to do that would have been the beginning in the planning phase. So that is your lessons learned from my metal roof experience. So whether it's a must-have for you or not, you can think, okay, like, how does this complexity in the roof or in the design, what is the implication for that across the rest of my project? Another avoidable renovation regret is we have these drop-down ceilings in our basement. A lot of you'll see this in a lot of houses. It's pretty common where the ducting has to go somewhere. But if it's really properly designed, or it's really thought through, you can actually tuck the ducting up between the floor joists. And we were able to do that for some of our project and not have to have the ducting drop downs everywhere in the house, those little boxes that come down from below the ceiling. But when we started with a clean sheet of paper, I'm like, why are these here? Why do we have this? It's clearly a design afterthought. And it's one of those things that, if I had realized it from the start, I would have started with the systems and said, okay, well, where are we going to run all the systems in the house? How will it connect? And then that would have really impacted the layout and made it a lot more efficient, probably less expensive to build. You wouldn't necessarily need as much ducting to run all over the place, and it would have been easier to install. And it just really there's this like trickle down effect for all the things that would have improved, in addition to the aesthetic, which I now live with. So little lesson learned for you there. So here, just a little recap of the lessons learned, and what for you is: 1, think of your future self and your family and what you're going to need in the future. Number 2, don't overlook the unglamorous spaces, like the laundry room. Whatever that unglamorous space is for you that you're like, meh, doesn't really matter. Like, oh, it's just storage. Like, okay, well, sometimes when you actually move in and you're living your life, those unglamorous spaces, they are important. They impact how enjoyable and easy it is to live in your house. Number 3 is to minimize plans and make your make your plans and minimize your changes. So, don't wing it. Make the plans in advance. Get really specific and detailed. Have drawings made. Sometimes it feels a little bit to the excess until you're in that phase where you're telling them where to put the light fixture in the bathroom and where to connect how high up you want the speakers, all of these things. So there's things that will impact it along the way. Number 4 is to prioritize those big ticket items early. So like the metal roof. So deciding if that's something that you want, and then you can build a design around that. Okay, so if I want more space, or I want, an accordion door, I want a rooftop deck, whatever that thing is that, just lights you up that you really want, you want to prioritize those things early so you can build them into your plans. And then, make sure that you can communicate to your architect or designer or contractor that, hey, this isn't like a metal roof or whatever it is for you is not important to me. And so that they can design around those things. And, we're all dealing with constraints. Every single person that builds a house or renovates has a budget. And so you can't have every single thing on your wish list, and everybody makes choices, right? So make sure that you plan and prioritize the things that you really want from the beginning. And number 5, renovation regret, and is to start with your systems. So if you don't want drop downs, or you want things to be efficient and to have your plans be easier to design, maybe they'll be easier to design, they'll be easier to construct, and then they'll be more functional, and and also deliver better aesthetics. Start with your systems and plan those things in advance, rather than the way that we did it, which was, okay, well, everything's already like framed out, so now where do we put these, and how do we work with what we have? So really go back to the planning phase. Thank you so much for joining me and for watching my first Facebook Live ever. I hope that you found some great tips in here. I have documented all of these avoidable renovation regrets and what to do instead in a free download. I will put that in the comments for the live video, so if you'd like to come back to it or see a little bit more details of what I mean, you can get your very own copy. And I'd love it if you find it valuable and you liked what you heard in here, if you'd share this with your family and friends. Thank you so much. I'm Julie Bennett, and this is Renovator's Toolkit. I am a woman on a mission to make renovation easier for homeowners. So this is your go-to place for homeowner to homeowner tips. Thanks.